Welcome to the Excel Pod. Welcome to the UNTIED Podcast, where we unravel the knots of life with faith, wisdom, and encouragement, because together we're here to untie from tradition and embrace truth through powerful Bible teaching. We are so glad that you have joined us today. My name is Garrett Bernethy. I'm one of the hosts of this show, and I'm here with one of my very good friends, Corey Sawyers, and we are bringing you Season 3, Episode 10, and today we're going to be looking at another Psalm of David, Psalm 56, which we have entitled Delivered from Danger. This season we have been looking at the blessed man in the Psalms of David and really have covered some pretty neat things, some pretty awesome things that we hope have been able to bless you. And if you're new to the show, thank you for joining us today. And for all those who have been joining us, we hope that you will, as always, like, share, subscribe, and follow not only this podcast, but the other podcasts on our family of podcasts at the Excel Pod Network. You can go to excelstillmore.net and check all those out there on the website. But also, we hope that you'll go to our YouTube channel, like and share that, and all that good stuff. And so we're excited to be with you today. This is the week after Thanksgiving. And we had a great time last week at the Smokers, and today we're back in the office and going to be talking about some very cool things. So, Corey, let's get this thing started, man. What's been cooking?
Well, other than Thanksgiving, we had enough cooking on Thanksgiving that we've just been eating the leftovers ever since. So I'm about ready to cook something else and be done with it. I'm thinking, in fact, this afternoon I'm going to go home and cook a big pot of chili, but we had a good time. Thanksgiving had everything turned out good. With the first time to ever spatchcock a turkey, I did 2 of them, and the first time to ever cook on a pellet grill smoker. But anyway, Gannon has been insisting ever since then that was the best turkeys I've ever done. So,
nice.
Anyway,
nice.
So, and it didn't take near as long, obviously, spatchcock them. It was cold, so it probably took them a little bit longer than what it normally would have if it had been normal temperatures. But I'm gonna say 3.5, 4 hours is what it took the turkeys, and they were about 14-pound turkeys. Mm-hmm. So that would have probably been at least a couple of more hours if I'd have been smoking them the old way. So, and of course the ribs turned out great. The ham turned out great. All the sides, Melody's dressing, which I'd put next to anybody's dressing in the world. And anyway, good weekend. How about y'all?
Well, it was the same. We had 2 different Thanksgivings. The first one I cooked ribs. 2 slabs of ribs and took over there, and we had turkey and all that stuff that others brought. But I don't know if you've tried this seasoning, Corey, but I tried a new seasoning I have not tried on my ribs before, and it is Kinder's Honey Chipotle. It was there. It's fantastic. It is really good, and so. Did one with that seasoning, and did the other with Meat Church seasoning. I think it was the Gospel I did on those, and both those turned out good. And then, like you did, a spatchcock the turkey on Friday, about 3.5 hours.
Had you done the spatchcocking before?
That's the first time. That was the first time, and it was so easy. to do it that way. I brined it, like I talked about, for 36 hours, I think is what I brined it for. Spatchcocked it, used the Meat Church bird baptism stuff, and then used the honey hog. I think it was honey hog that I used on there, and cooked really well. I separated the meat. Whenever I laid it down, I separated the skin from the meat on the breast, and then put butter in there, and then coated it real well with that seasoning. And man, and it really did cook. It cooked very evenly. That's what everybody had said about it. It cooks very evenly. So I did that about every 30 minutes after the first hour and 15 minutes. I went in there and dressed it up, and kept going over it with maple syrup and that seasoning and butter, and just kept basting it, and looked really good. And I got there, and everybody I said, it looks great.
Yeah. Except for the fact that it looks like it's been run over by something, But I kept basting mine with butter that I'd melted, and I put some herbs in there, some thyme and sage and some stuff. And then the last 30 minutes or so, and of course I watched a ton of videos. I don't remember which one, maybe Meat Church had suggested this. I put some mustard and some honey in the butter that I'd been using. And then the last couple times I basted with that, and kind of put a little glaze over the top of it. It was really good.
Well, I highly recommend anybody cooking a turkey, if you have not done it that way, to try it. Just try it.
Make sure you get some good shears. I took Melody's kitchen scissors, and the first cut I tried to make, I broke the handle off of it. So go ahead and get your jigsaw or reciprocating saw is the best way to do it, and it just zips right through there. So,
well, if you're good with a knife, I have a pretty sharp knife, and
that's what I ended up using.
Was able to cut that backbone out pretty. It came out a lot easier than I thought, to be honest.
Yeah.
And
really if you want to, we didn't because we had too much else going on. I should have thrown them in the freezer and said, but you can keep all that and the giblets, and you can, put it in some water and make yourself some turkey broth, boil that down. Right. And I didn't do that. I wished I had, because I had two backbones and two necks. You froze on me there for a minute. Did you hear me?
There we go. We're back in business now. It's like every day here at the church building, there is like twice a day, there's a time where you just lose it for a minute, and then it comes right back. I don't know. As the world turns,
you don't lose it. The computer loses it.
That's right. I have never lost it, for sure. Oh man! But
we're talking about. I'm preaching through Genesis on Sunday night. This Sunday night we're in Genesis 4, and I'm going to talk about how that after they got thrown out of the garden, the next thing we hear about Adam and Eve, they've sinned in chapter 3, and then chapter 4, the next thing we know, they're raising Cain. So
they've lost it. Oh man! Well, before we move on to our give me your best books, I will say this, that about the turkey. Going back to the turkey, everybody seemed to like it. But it's still, if you don't like turkey, I don't think you can do anything for people. Some people like turkey. Just never will be a fan of turkey. So anyway, that's all I'll say about that. But it turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know why we can't make it ribs and brisket or something, pork shoulder and bacon, or I don't know.
Oh, we can make it like that. In fact, we probably will for the rest of my life. Oh man! All right, well, we got to get moving on this thing. So let's see here. Let's go to our next segment here. We've got things that we're both have to do later on today, and so we're going to go ahead and move and get to our next segment, which is bring your best books. And so, as always, I'm pretty excited about this. I've got some pretty good reads off of this segment here, and we hope that you have too. And so, Corey, let's go ahead and start with yours. I've got yours actually pulled up, this first one. And so,
well, both of the ones I'm going to do today are devotional books, and like we talk about everything, you gotta learn to spit out the bones, whoever writes it. But devotional books are good for not maybe deep Bible study, but if you're in the morning wanting to just start your day off by thinking about godly things and spiritual things or whatever, a good little way to do that. And as a preacher or a teacher, you can find a lot of good illustration ideas, because that's what a lot of the devotionals in these devotion books are, is an illustration and then a Bible verse and a kind of an application. But anyway, the first one is At the Table with Jesus. You can see up on the screen if you're watching. And I'm probably not going to pronounce his name the way he does, but Louis Giglio is the way I say his name, so I hope that's right. But At the Table with Jesus, he's got a bunch of devotional books that he's written. There's a companion devotional book to this entitled Don't Give the Enemy a Seat at Your Table. But this one is about At the Table with Jesus. And every 66 days, it says, to draw closer to Christ and fortify your faith. There are 66 chapters, 66 devotions in this, and they're divided off into sections. But each day, in the table of contents, each day begins with Jesus is. So, or Jesus does, whatever. Jesus is God. Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus is the Word of God. Jesus created everything. It's all about Jesus. And so I really like this one, and it's been one that every now and again I'll go back to and read through. The other one is written by Steve Chapman, and I've been given through the years 2 or 3 versions of this particular book, but I should have recommended this one last week, since we were just freshly from the deer stand last week. But this one is A Look at Life from a Deer Stand, and this one has daily devotionals, 20 of them, I think it is, but all of the devos have something to do with kind of the outdoors, hunting kind of deal. So particularly for guys that are into that, you would especially appreciate that. And one that's been out, this has been out, I don't know how long this is, when it was originally published, 1998, but the one that I'm holding here is the 2012 version that it has some newer stories in it. So there's a couple of different versions out there, and anyway, both of those, any of those, again, you got to learn to spit out the bones and that kind of thing. But when you're looking for something to read to go to sleep at night or whatever, and you want to do something spiritual, it's a good way to get a spiritual thought in your head.
Well, what a great image right here.
Yeah.
That's probably the best cover that we have seen right there. I'd probably take that one.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for those, and hopefully we won't keep freezing up. I don't know what's going on, but let me do this one here. This book is something I know that both of us have used before. 12 Ordinary Men. This is by John MacArthur. This is a book that really goes through, and I've got a copy right here. He looks at all of the apostles and really dissects their life and characteristics about them. And I love it's actually the first, I think it's the theme of the first chapter, the first section here, which is common men, uncommon calling. I love that. And and he really goes through, and I think does a wonderful job of looking at each of the apostles and what we know about them, the characteristics they show, some of the things that they did. And this is good and bad. And he even separates them into basically 3 different groups of men based on what we know from the text on how close they were to Jesus. So we all recognize the inner circle of Peter, James, and John. He actually, in many cases, includes Andrew in there, even though we don't see Andrew in some of those situations. But some of the things that he brings out about each one of these men is pretty remarkable, and really opened my eyes personally to a lot of these guys. And so John MacArthur is of course, is not a member of the church, but he has done a great job. He's a great author and has a lot of good stuff. And again, as we say so many times, pick out the bones. I don't know that there's a whole lot in here, but I'm sure there's a few. I just can't remember them. But in anything that you read, you want to make sure and pick the bones out. But 12 Ordinary Men. There's also another one for the ladies that is fantastic as well. At some point, we'll probably put that up there. The second book that I want to recommend is called. This is kind of a new one, but we haven't done any children's books. But Oklahoma Farm Life, and this one's pretty personal to me because my cousin Jeannie Martin put this together, and this is a story about my grandfather and his family growing up on the farm. And it's got some spiritual content in it. It's a story about the things that they did, and is a great read for grandparents or parents. If you're reading to your children at night and you need something good to read, this is really good stuff. And it's really cool for me because it's all stories about my grandpa and his brothers and sisters. And so here's an image right here, and whoever drew this, that is the best image of my great grandfather right there. Just really good stuff. And anyway, Oklahoma Farm Life is what it's called, and you can go to AmericanFamilySeries.com to purchase these, and it's just really good. I was able to go through it before it was published and help with some of this stuff, and so very, very cool read. So this is a great children's book that I would highly recommend to you. Well, Corey, it's time to get into our psalm today. We are in Psalm 56, and we are looking at the idea of being delivered from danger. It seems that this psalm is really kind of both a lament and a trust psalm, and everything that it's talking about. It's one of the shorter psalms that we have, not the shortest, but a shorter psalm that we have gone through, only 13 verses to this, and definitely a great read here, something to apply. We're meditating on Scripture as we read in Psalm 1 and verse 2. And so we're connecting this back to 1 Samuel chapter 21, verses 10 and 11 is the main text we're going back to, where it says, "Then David arose and fled that day from Saul and went to Achish, the king of Gath. But the servants of Achish said to him, Is this not David, the king of the land? Did they not sing of this one as they danced, saying, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands?" And so that's where we're connecting this back to. So as we get into this, brother Corey, why don't you go ahead and introduce the psalm, and then we will dive in.
Well, we did we not do Psalm 34? I was thinking we've already done Psalm 34. I know it was on the list, but I can't remember.
We did, yes.
Psalm 34 is kind of talking about the same thing here, and it talks about there in Psalm 34 in the, I don't have it in front of me, but in the title of it, it says something when he feigned madness or something like that, depending on your translation. It'll say something of that nature.
Well, it changed his behavior. This is basically drove him out.
Yeah, this is the same occasion in which this one is, but I think maybe this one is a little bit further down the road. Whenever he is, because of the fear of what he's going. So David has two problems here. He's running from Saul. He's running from Saul, and at the same time, he's got the Philistines in Gath, which, by the way, if that name of that town sounds familiar, you may remember a little guy named Goliath that David had slain from there. And
just a wee little man.
Back in chapter 18, 19, somewhere in there, 1 Samuel is where they're singing this song that the Philistines had mentioned. Well, it must have been on Casey Kasem's Top 40, which a lot of our listeners younger than me won't understand what Casey Kasem's Top 40 is. But all the way down at Gath, they've heard of this little song that has been topping the charts in Jerusalem for a while now about what David has done. And so there's enemies on one side, there's enemies on the other side. In chapter 22 is when he escapes from the Philistines in Gath, it says, and goes to the cave of Adullam. And maybe that's where, while he was there in this cave hiding, is when he wrote some of these Psalms. I don't know. But anyway, that's what's going on here. Same kind of deal to think about is that David he's in a pickle, and he goes to God with his fears and his troubles and what it is that's on his mind. And so it's a lament psalm in that he's lamenting what's going on with him. By the way, it says, according to the dove on far off terebinths. Not sure exactly what that means, but some people think maybe that's the tune of the song that he is using to put these lyrics to or whatever. But anyway, David writes this psalm lamenting to God about what's going on in his life, the problem that he has. But it's also a psalm of, we've talked about before, all the laments end in thanksgiving or trust or praise or whatever. This one certainly does. In fact, it's more of this, I think, than lament per se. But it's more of a psalm of trust or a psalm of thanksgiving, because he's going to ask God for help, and then he's going to talk about how that he knows God will take care of him. So the way that I would break it apart is verses 1 and 2, David asks God for help. I think this one, like you've pointed out in so many of them, it's all about the relationship between the psalmist and God, in this case, David and God. So the way I've labeled this reflects that. But David asks God for help, verses 1 and 2. Verses 3 and 4, David trusts in God. Verses 5 through 7, David asks God for justice. Verses 8 through 11, David trusts in a God who cares. And then 12 through 13, David vows to God. So, what that kind of in a nutshell tells you what this psalm is about. He's going to ask God for help, and he's going to trust that God's going to take care of him. Then he's going to get a little bit more specific about what's going on. And in verses 5 through 7, talk about what the enemies are doing, and asking God to bring justice because of that. And then in verses 8 through 11, which is my favorite part of this psalm, verse 8 in particular, but verses 8 through 11, he trusts in God is going to bring justice because he cares about David. And then, so at the end of the psalm, the last two verses, he's going to vow to God to do the things that God expects of him and the things that will show his love and appreciation for God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really amazes me. One thing that I've seen, tell me if you agree with this or not, but I think that one of the issues that it seems that we have in our culture is that we really have become a people who build our faith on other people's faith. We connect ourselves to other people who are quote unquote spiritual. We we lean on them and their, I don't know what the right word would be, but we're leaning on their spiritual essence, their, what we feel like we see in them in their relationship with God. And because we're connected to that person, that is something that just spilled my coffee. We connect ourselves to that person because we feel like we need to in order to be that type of person. And so, this is not something that I see in David. David is forced out. He's on the run. He's not needing to connect himself spiritually to anybody to have that relationship with God. It's maybe it's really not maybe it is the same way, maybe it's not, but in 2 Corinthians, he talks about what happened earlier in Asia. And one of the things that we find out about the Apostle Paul is that in his situation, he was forced to stop trusting in himself and fully trust in God.
Hey, let me interrupt you for one second before you finish that thought.
Yeah.
For our listeners that hadn't studied it in great detail, 2 Corinthians, in my opinion, is kind of like David's version of Psalms. 2 Corinthians is Paul, kind of like what David's doing in Psalms. He's writing just how he feels about what he's going through with his relationship with God and what's going on around him. Anyway, go ahead.
Right. And yeah, that really is a great way to put it. I think that in the same way as Paul was, Asia was a terrible time for him. He's fighting the wild beast and all that stuff, whatever that means. And then he's, God delivers him from death in chapter 15, but now he's forced to trust fully in God. Well, how I'm seeing that is the Apostle Paul is really doing exactly what Jesus did. 1 Peter chapter 2, 21 through 25 says that he entrusted himself, to the one who judged righteously. He entrusted himself fully to God when he went to the cross. That was his, during his time of great suffering. And so Jesus trusts fully in God. Paul trusts fully in God and not in themselves. That's why Jesus said, your will, your will be done, but not mine. And that's what the Apostle Paul is doing. Well, it seems that David is doing the same thing during his life. He is essentially, possibly, in this, God is using this situation, it seems, to develop a full trust of David in him. Don't trust in yourself, trust in me. Now, I'm not saying that God caused any of this situation to happen. That's definitely on Saul and his jealousy and his pride, and this is on, the Philistines, who were, obviously a major enemy of Israel, major enemy of David. And going back to the Judges, Samson killed more Philistines in one day than anybody had, altogether. So the Philistines are traditionally an enemy, right? And so David, who's on the run constantly from all of these different individuals, whether it's Saul, Absalom, the Philistines, whoever, it seems that this situation is really, really, really pushing him even more. Trust and rely on God and not yourself. And that's one thing that I've just continually seen as we have been just about in every one of these, marking the me's, the I's, the my's, and the you's, and the God's, and the Lord's, because this is a personal relationship that David has with God that is not built on anyone else. It's not run through anyone else. And that might be one of the great things that we can take from this, is that there is not a world that exists where your faith can be built on someone else. Your faith has to be yours, and that relationship with God needs to be real. And that's when true blessings from God can happen, because of that real relationship that you have. I don't know, kind of maybe soapbox thing, but that's just something that I continue to see during all of this is, look at this. I have put my trust in you, in God I've put my trust, rather it says, but up here I will put my trust in you. And I think that this is just a result of how he sees God, his faith in God, his trust in God. Do whatever you want to me, but here you go.
Yep. Yeah, but that's what we see throughout all these Psalms, whether it's David or one of the other psalmists. I'll talk a little bit and give you a little time to clean up coffee in there.
Oh, and it ain't much. It's just driving me nuts now. This is real show, folks. Real time.
Yeah. Live radio. All of the psalmists, that's what we keep talking about. These are truly men of God, and whatever they're going through, good, bad, anywhere in between, the highest of highs and the lowest of lows, it always drives them back to God. So, again, you've got this scenario where David's being pursued by all of these different guys, and, instead of complaining to God, he begins by, really just turning to God and talking about how that I know that you're with me. In those first two verses, be gracious to me, O God, for man tramples on me all day long. An attacker oppresses me. My enemies trample on me all day long, for many attack me proudly. They don't have any shame in what they're doing, evidently. They're attacking me proudly, he says. But so he starts off just saying, be merciful or be gracious to me. You remember, if you watch the old Dukes of Hazzard,
yeah,
you remember maybe Roscoe P. Coltrane.
Oh yeah,
and he would say, "I've got him in hot pursuit." Well, that's kind of what I think of here. What he's saying, his foes have trampled on him, is what the ESV says. Man tramples on me, enemies trample. It's one of those words that can mean a whole lot of things, but the idea, I think, is really like they're in hot pursuit. They're searching. Where they're wearing themselves out trying to get to him, and what they want to do is they want to hurt him, but they attack me proudly, like they're not even ashamed about what they're doing, because they think they're in the right, whether that's Saul or whether it's the Philistines. They're not ashamed of what they're doing. So, in other words, I don't have anywhere that I can turn. We sing sometimes, where can I go but to the Lord? Mm-hmm. That's where David is here. Where can I go but to the Lord? And so I'm calling on you for mercy and grace to help me whenever this is all going on around me.
Yeah. And, here's something maybe to think about. And is this literal? I don't know, but it very much seems like the enemies of David they're nonstop. It's just a continual thing, and you think about stress and anxiety and of running and hiding and doing whatever when people are constantly coming after you. This is nonstop, and so the oppression is real. The trampling on him is real. Is it a physical trampling? Possibly. Is it a mental trampling? Possibly. Is it an emotional trampling? Possibly. I mean, what all does that mean? Well, it can mean anything. And the fighting all day long, he oppresses me. The fighting is, man, it can be every single direction. So it seems like we're looking at a guy that's worn out. He doesn't have anywhere else to go. And so he's got nowhere else to turn. But it seems like in David's life, there's only one way that he wants to turn. But again, this is the way that he is forced to turn. Be gracious to me, O God. And here's why. And so this would be, more of the lament part of this. I think it's interesting that they say they fight proudly against me. The pride of the enemy. The Philistines were prideful people. These people that, they're constantly coming after David and Israel, and, they've got their heritage, they've got their warriors, they've got their pride, and they're looking at this little people named Israel thinking there's no way that you can, you're nothing to us. And that seems to be the mindset, which really begins to come out as Saul is there with his army on the hill, scared to death, looking at this valley where the Philistines are, and Goliath is hollering up at him, give me your best guy. And Saul is fearful. Why is that? Because they were not afraid of Israel. Prideful people, ready to fight. And I don't think that mindset ever stopped. So this has been going on for years.
No, and if it's Saul too that's included in this, Saul was prideful. That ended up being his downfall. Was he thought, I'm large and in charge, which, he started off hiding behind the suitcases because he didn't want to be anointed king.
Right.
But here he was. And I really think he was maybe so fearful because, in champion warfare, you send out your biggest and best. Well, from Scripture, who do we know was the biggest Israelite? Saul was a head taller than everybody. So he should have been the one going down to the valley to face off against Goliath. And, David, basically, probably older teenager boy, comes in and says, hey, I'll take your place for you, But it wasn't that David was this, major war hero. It was the fact that he knew that, as he told Saul, it was God that was going to take care of it. And that's what he's asking him again to do here, years down the road, is I need you to take care of me again, God.
Isn't it interesting? And I don't, hopefully this doesn't get us off track, but isn't it interesting that Israel's king has always been the one who needed to make the biggest, who needed to go into the biggest battle? Saul refused. And I'm not saying that the battle going on with the Philistines was the biggest one, but I would say that probably that's the most notable that everybody remembers, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he had a lot of battles, and they won a lot of battles, and I'm not, not making the claim that he didn't. Ultimately, at the end of his life, he was definitely in war, in battle, and didn't want to be caught in that way. And so, we know what happened there, but, it's just really interesting that it was David, the true king of Israel, that is ready to go fight against something that seems impossible. And going down in the line of David, down to Jesus, who is also a king, goes to do something that all feel is impossible. I think that's just interesting to think about. That is the king of Israel who, goes to do the impossible things for his people and, may not be what we would call the most equipped to do it. People looked at Jesus and didn't think that he was much, but he trusted in God and therefore he did it.
Mm-hmm.
So, something to ponder, put in the old think tank.
Yeah, and all of those ties to the son of David is, in the New Testament, you can see the parallels in so many ways like that.
Right. So going on into the second part here, verses 3 and 4, which we've labeled trust in God. When I am afraid, I will put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I have put my trust. I shall not be afraid. What can mere man do to me? If that's not real, true trust, I don't know what is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a guy that's worn out, a guy that's attacked all the time, this right here, I think, is a great summary of the mindset of how the blessed man thinks.
Yep. And that, in the New American Standard, it's got mere man. It's literally, what can flesh do to me? Because, and it's a rhetorical question, obviously the answer is nothing, because God isn't limited by what flesh can do. God is sovereign and he's in charge. And as long as I've got you on my side, that's all I really need. I put my trust in you. I'm praising you. I'm trusting you. And so because of that, I know I'm going to be okay. That doesn't mean I'm not scared. It doesn't mean that I'm not, dealing with problems right now, but ultimately, I know that God is in control and He's going to take care of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love how he, of course, begins and ends here. We get these boxed off here. When I am afraid, I shall not be afraid. And why is that? It's because it's trust in the Lord. Mm-hmm. I will put my trust, and so these two right here go together. It seems like, I don't know, I'm just kind of marking these randomly at large here. So again, you guys who are all professional Bible markers and logos, forgive me.
Well, it's definitely an ABBA setup here. So when I am afraid, I will not be afraid goes together. And then I will put my trust in you, in God, whose word I praise, in God I put my trust. You've got this, maybe you've even called it ABCBA. Yeah. But, you know, the whole idea here is that when I'm afraid, I won't be afraid because I'm focusing on God, not me, not on my enemies, not on my circumstances. You know, all my focus is on Him, and that's what we have to do whenever we are, dealing with whatever issues that we're dealing. And when we get to the next section, and I don't know that we're ready to go there, but not the next section, but the next section, if that verse 8 and 11, he's going to, again, kind of expand on that of why that he's not going to be afraid when he's afraid, because of what God does and how He cares and whatnot. But the point that he's making here is that I'm asking God to be merciful to me. I've got these enemies that are in hot pursuit, but it's making me afraid. But when I'm afraid, I realize it's kind of like James chapter 1. I've got to lead my mind into thinking about God, not thinking about my circumstances or my own weaknesses. I've got to think about the God it is that's in charge.
Which is really hard to do.
Yes.
It is really hard to do. This is not something that, David, the blessed man, a man of God, has to train themselves to think like that. Because it is so easy to get that negative mindset and to begin, just relying on yourself and moving forward yourself and really just kind of going through life and not even, we're just getting through the situation and I'm going to blame everything and everyone. So here in verses 5 through 7, where he's asking God for justice, all day long they distort my words. And remember, they've already said that that my foes have trampled on me. They're fighting all day long. So maybe 5 through 7 is kind of encompassing everything that he's talking about in 1 and 2. All day long they distort my words. All their thoughts are against me for evil. They attack, they lurk, they watch my steps as they have waited to take my life because of wickedness. Cast them forth in anger. Put down the peoples, God. And so, from the distorting of words, the thoughts that are against him, of course, every thought was evil. We've seen that in several occasions prior to this with even Israel. They're attacking, they're lurking, they're watching my steps. So these are people who are, all eyes are on David. All eyes are on this situation. And so again, all day long this is going on. So just a little bit more, God give me some relief, it seems, is what he's, asking for. Put these people down, oh God. So I think that we can see definitely the frustration, the anger, the sorrow, all the emotions coming out of David within this small section.
Yeah, and that, what is it in the New American Standard there? Their wickedness, verse 7, that word is, it can be wickedness or evil or whatever, calamity, but it's also the word for injustice. And so the ESV has that first line in verse 7 as, for their crime will they escape, in wrath cast down the peoples, O God. And so that's why I label this him asking God for justice, is because it seems as if they've done injustice. Are they going to get away with that? And then he's asking God, the second line of verse 7, cast them down. make sure that there is justice that they are having to face for what they've done. And like you said, he goes into greater detail. Verse 1 and 2 is kind of generic. Verses 6, 7, 8, 5, 6, 7 rather, he gets more specific about what it is that they're doing, the injustices that they're bringing to him, and why he's asking God to take care of what it is that he's having to deal with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that leads us into, and notice here.
Be merciful, be gracious to me, but not to them, because they're unrepentant. So,
yeah. Right. Yeah. And connecting, I wish there was some way that I could get on here, maybe there is, that you could, draw lines. Maybe at some point we'll get to that. I guess I could hook my iPad up and do that, but all day long. So this is almost, all day long, what can mere man do to me? That is the reality. But all day long, here's what man is doing to me, which is the interesting part. So that takes us down into verses 8 through 11 with the God who cares. You have taken account of my wanderings, put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book? Then my enemies will turn back in the day when I call. This I know, that God is for me. And then he goes on to say, in God whose words I praise, in the Lord whose word I praise, in God I have put my trust. I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? So, there's a lot of repetitive stuff going on here that he is repeating over and over again, which I think is verifying even more the mindset that David has. So again, here I have put my trust. Maybe I'll make that all caps here. We're just having fun with this.
Well, and my favorite part of that section is from there in verse 8. You've kept count of my tossings, is the way the ESV has it. Put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book? Three different ways of saying kind of the same thing, that God is aware of what we're going through. Don't let them, he asked in that last verse, don't let them escape justice, because you know what is going on, and you know what it's meant to mean. That God knows how he suffered. He's taken note of his sorrow. He's got his tears in a bottle. It's kind of the idea that you see throughout the Old Testament, in particular in the book of Revelation, of the wine vat kind of stuff. You're keeping a record of it, and now it's time to. But even more so, why I say this is my favorite part of this psalm is because it just shows that not only is God hearing me, but God cares about me. Jesus talks about how that, there's not he knows the number of our hairs on our head. That's how intimately concerned he is about what's going on. And, we sing a song, does Jesus care? And then we get to the end, to the chorus, oh yes, he cares. I know he cares. And it really ought to encourage us when we're going through, we sometimes feel like we're all alone. And how many times has David asked, how long will you close your ears and turn your face from me, and those kinds of things. But in reality, that's poetic language, and it's spoken out of emotion. David knows, God knows every tear that we've shed, every concern that we've had, every problem that we've suffered through. God knows, and God cares about that. So, the fact that, again, we sometimes complain that God is not present, that God doesn't care about what's going on when we're suffering. Here he's expressing that trust, that God watches over me, and God knows and is concerned about what's going on in my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He did, again, we'll say this. God did not make the world and leave. He didn't do what he did for people, for all of mankind, and then just say, all right, here you go. Have at it. I'll see you later. The day of judgment or the day of sentencing, whatever you'd like to call it, 1 Thessalonians 4:13-17, when Jesus comes back and the clouds part and the dead in Christ will rise first and those who are alive will be caught up together with him, that's not him coming back to his people. That's him welcoming his people home. And so God didn't just leave and say, well, we'll see how you guys do. That's not the deal here. God is very present in the life of David. And so, as you were pointing out, and again, he's repeating himself over and over. When I am afraid, I shall not be afraid. I shall not be afraid. I put my trust. I put my trust. I put my trust. Well, who is he putting his trust in? In God, I have put my trust. And that is such a huge thing. So in God, whose word I praise.
Verses 10 and 11 is almost a repeat of verse 4.
Yeah.
3 and 4.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
That's why I say verses 1 and 2, he talks about the problem. Verses 3 and 4, he talks about where his confidence is. Mm-hmm. And then verses 5 through 7 is going, like you said, back to 1 and 2 and expounding on that. And then verses 8 through 11 is going back to 3 and 4 and expounding on that. So he introduces both of these ideas, what he's going through and what he needs God to do. And then in 8 through 11 and then 5 through 7, he's giving a little bit more detail about, I think.
Yeah. So again, this I know that God is for me, and God whose word I praise, in the Lord whose word I praise, in God I have put my trust. I shall not be afraid. What can man do to me? This is not, and again, maybe this needs to be said, the blessed man may not be as what we might call blessed here on earth. The blessed man is eternally blessed because of the relationship he has with God. I should clarify, he or she, right? The person, the soul has with God. Yeah. There's an eternal perspective to this.
Yeah, and we keep going back to the idea of the blessed man of Psalm 1 is the one who's God approved. Why is he God approved? Because of this relationship that he has sought to be in with God, and not that he's perfect, but that he's trying to live his life for him. That's what David's doing in this entire psalm, is turning back to him. But then when we get down to verses 12 through 13, it's living for him. It's not just calling on him when I've got trouble and then going back to living my life, but it's maintaining that relationship by the way we live. And, you're talking about God didn't just leave us alone. I'm actually this month on Sunday mornings, I'm going to be preaching the next 3 Sundays on different names of Jesus. And so this first Sunday, we're going to talk about Emmanuel, God with us. And one of the things that we're going to talk about kind of in the introduction of the lesson is, how can we say God is omnipresent? He's everywhere. But yet we need God with us, as if, we're going to talk about the way that God with us is referred to in the Bible is more of that. God is everywhere. Even when I'm living as selfishly as I might want to, God's still there.
Yeah.
But God with us means that we're able to have a relationship with him. And, what we're going to do, in fact, this Sunday's talk about different times where different people are dealing with different things, and it says God was with them, good and bad. David is a great example of that.
Yeah, and there's a powerful thought in that, is that God is everywhere. God can be everywhere. Satan cannot be. And there's a big difference there. So while we say, well, God has a hand in everything, some people will say, well, that was the devil did that, Satan did that. Well, Satan can't be everywhere. Some of this stuff is your choice. Some of this stuff is your doing. Yeah. Now, did he, has he had a hand in manipulating things? And well, sure. Yeah. I mean, you can definitely see his work. He's God of this world. We understand that. But the reality is that God can be everywhere. Now, as we're looking at David, you brought up Psalm 1. I thought this right here would be, we mentioned, what the blessed man looks like, but I love what he says in verse 3. He, this is the blessed man, will be like a tree firmly planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in its season, and its leaf does not wither, and whatever he does, he prospers. A tree that is firmly rooted stays in one place. It doesn't move. Now, I think that there's a few meanings of probably what's going on there, but a tree that is firmly rooted, that is producing fruit, when the wind comes, it doesn't move. When the big storm comes, it doesn't move. When, it is there and it's there to stay. And that's where David is. He is there with God and he's there to stay. And that's what we need to be as faithful men and women, there with God and there to stay. Now, again, probably a few things going on in Psalm 1, but that's simply, I think, a good application of how firmly and rooted his faith is in God, his trust is in God, that he goes to God for all things. And you can see the fruits of that within his life, that, this is something he continually does. Which he says, what can man do to me? Again, an eternal perspective. So now he goes to the closing thoughts, really, where he vows to God. He said, Your vows are binding upon me, O God. I will render thank offerings to you, for you have delivered my soul from death, indeed my feet from stumbling, that I may walk before God in the light of the living. So again, I don't have all these highlighted here, but again, we are continuously seeing this me and God, my feelings with God. This is a very continuously personal relationship that he is vowing here. This is a two-person thing. Nobody else in this. He's not relying on anybody else. He's relying on his faith. And so he understands, indeed, you'll be the one that keeps my feet from stumbling. I may walk before God in the light of the living.
Yeah. But it begins with, he's praising God, which is why that he's going to live for God. And, we can't disconnect those two things. We can't come and worship God and expect to live our lives however we want to, Monday through Saturday, and then come before him and worship on Sunday. They have to be interconnected. But the reason why that I'm going to stay faithful to you is because he knows God is faithful to him. Mm-hmm. So if God's going to be faithful to me, how could I not be faithful to him?
Right. Yeah. And again, that even though this is connected to the bad guys in this story, the all day long, they're trampling upon me all day long, they distort my words. Well, that might be the case. All day long, God is with him. Mm-hmm. And that's why he can put his trust in me all day long. While they're in his presence, so is God. And I think this is a beautiful relationship. The man of God, the blessed man, has a beautiful relationship with God. And it is a two-way thing. God working in the life of that person, and that person working, with God during their life. This is a beautiful relationship. And it just really continues to show that no matter what I go through, God will be there. God will help me to get through it. Put your trust in him. And no matter what happens, you're going to be okay, because eternally, God has got you.
That's right. And even though he's not only surrounded by darkness because of what these evil men are doing to him, he's in darkness literally. He's in a cave. But he says that with God, he didn't have to worry about that, because walking with God, he's in the light of life.
Right. Yeah. Well, another great psalm.
Have we got time in closing for me to read you a poem?
Go ahead. Yeah.
This was written, supposedly inspired by Psalm 56, but it's about Jesus. So this was written by David Wissinger, and it's called He Wept. And again, it goes back to this idea of the tears. But it says he wept as his grief was hard to bear, for he felt Mary and Martha's deep despair. Come forth were the words Jesus cried, and Lazarus arose 4 days after he died. Jesus wept over Jerusalem with many tears, knowing of its destruction in coming years. With anguish Jesus prayed as he wept, while around the garden his disciples slept. Our Savior knew his time was drawing near, yet bravely faced his enemies without showing fear. Judas repented, and when the Savior set loose, surely he wept as he tightened the noose. Peter denied his Lord 3 times in a row, and he wept bitterly after hearing a cock crow. Paul's tears wetted his 2 Corinthians letter, for he wept knowing his letters made things better. Timothy's tears showed Paul his abiding love, for he wept knowing a glorious reunion waited above. With sorrowful tears I confess what I've done. My sin showed the death of God's only Son, or caused the death of God's only Son. Jesus showed emotions just like you and me, and our anguish and tears he will see. At heaven's throne I'll rest at my Savior's feet, knowing eternal joy will not let me weep.
Wow, that's great. That is great. I don't know a better way to end than that right there. Do you have that in a book, or is that one that you've had for a while? Or
Finger. I think probably October 5th, 2001 is when it's dated. I think probably Wayne Berger's the one that gave this to me, but I can't. I've gotten so much stuff from Wayne Berger over the years.
Oh, well, that's great. Well, Corey, this has been another great time with you, and to all of our listeners, we're so thankful that you have joined us today, and we hope that our conversation has helped you in a wonderful way, and maybe caused you to think on a few things for your life, and hopefully these just have helped you grow, or will help you grow as you study this psalm and all of them that we've gone through on your own. And so this is, really just a starting point that we hope that you'll take and move with and do something with in your own study and life, because these are really, really great things to read. And again, taking them one at a time. This is not we've got to get through all 150, right? This is, let's take one at a time. Let's think about it. Let's meditate on it and chew on the cud, as we said in our first episode, and because that's how they're really meant to be looked at and studied. And so thank you for joining us today. And there are a couple of things that we want you to know about. First is with the work of Excel Still More, we have 2 things to let you know about. One is the Accelerator magazine. The 2nd issue has come out, and you can go to our Facebook page, Excel Still More Inc., and check that out, download it. We're working on putting that out there in a few other ways. Or you can subscribe to our website, and we will email you a copy of that e-zine for you to check out as it highlights all the different parts of the work of Excel Still More Inc. And 2, the Excel Still More Bible Workshop is coming up in January. Both Corey and I will be there. Both of us will be speaking. We're excited about this event. That's January 21st through the 24th in Oklahoma City at the O'Connor Resort. Just head over to our website, excelstillmore.net. Go to the workshop tab and go down, and you can register and book your rooms today. All booked rooms will be released on December 21st. So you're going to want to go and get that done. Book your rooms, get that discounted rate. That helps us, it helps you. And so make sure and go on and do that before December 21st. Got a great lineup of speakers. It's going to be an excellent event. We hope to see you there. All right, Corey. Well, until next time, we thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you will continue to grow in your daily walk with God. And so until next time, we hope that you will stay untied.